before we begin, I'll give a little bit of a background on the team here. I'm here with my co-founder Eyal Herzog, and we've been building internet companies for about 15 years. We're actually consumer internet folks. So Eyal was the creator of a company called MetaCafe. It was actually one of the first big video sharing sites on the internet, 50 million users. And I got into video games very early, focused on smartphones. One of the first companies called Mytopia in iOS and Android multiplayer content. So when we got into Bitcoin in 2011, we came with a very different mindset. We weren't technologists as much as we were consumer internet folks. And so one of the things that we realized is that there's a very high barrier to entry today to creating new currencies, to using currencies. And so we really focused on addressing those problems at Bancor, and I'll take you through a quick presentation that explains to you what Bancor is, and then we'll very quickly shift over to a live demo so you can actually see it in action. All right, so the first thing that's important to understand is that for something to be accessible for regular people, you need to be able to use it without needing to understand what the blockchain is, needing to be a software developer, you know, the way that you upload a video to YouTube. Anybody can do it. And so here you see an example of our chat bots. On your right, you can see an example of just kind of creating a currency. It just asks you some questions. What's the name of your currency? How many decimal places? Enter a description, a few other key pieces of information. You hit, you know, go at the end, and boom, you have a currency on the Ethereum blockchain. Although in the future, this will work on really any smart contract-enabled blockchains, including private blockchains. And the same for starting a crowd sale, an ICO. So you want to initiate an ICO. There's a few more questions that you need to answer. What kind of ICO do you want to do? How long is it going to run? Is it capped? Is it uncapped? At the end of the process, your ICO begins. Now, you know, the first question is, why would you even want to have a currency? Why do we even need so many currencies? And I think that aside from maybe more philosophically understanding that a currency is credit creation, and by democratizing credit creation, we can really change the world. You know, just to give more practical examples, the killer feature today on blockchain is decentralized financing. So today, a currency is real. I mean, this is the first killer app on blockchain. And we see this starting with Ethereum, which was, you know, other than Mastercoin, maybe the first real crowd sale, and a platform that now is going to set off a wave of crowd sales. And, you know, we all see what happened with Ethereum. And, you know, our friend Brock Pierce, I'll read the quote that he said recently. It's my belief in the next 10 or 20 years, no startup in the world will be financed in any other way other than with a token. So, you know, people are going to make local currencies, group currencies, project currencies. There's going to be literally millions and millions of different kinds of currencies in the world. However, making it simple to create a currency, you know, that's only half the job. The other problem we face is the liquidity issue. If you create a currency and it can only be used in one place and it can't be traded globally, then you've made something that is relatively useless. It'll have very low utility. So, you know, I think that the important thing to understand is that once smart contracts were invented, maybe let's call it the second generation of blockchains, everything changed. Because for the first time in the history of mankind, we have a situation where software code that is trustless and immutable and isn't held by a central party can now hold money. It can hold programmable money. And this is such a massive paradigm shift that it literally changes everything. It's going to change the way our laws work. It's going to change the way our society organizes. It's the ability, you know, if Bitcoin was the revolution that started off decentralized money, smart contracts are the revolution that starts off decentralized legal systems. And we're not going to go into like criminal law and things like that, right? But just in terms of like business law and how people organize in companies, and you have your articles of incorporation, and it governs, and, you know, lawyers and escrow agents, and they are in charge of making sure that contracts are enforced. We don't need all of this anymore in the same way that we needed it in the past. So if we can go to the next slide. So I actually want to go one more. You can see that with Bancor, we've introduced a new standard for cryptocurrencies that relies on smart contracts. And what it does is it allows a currency to be created with the ability to hold one or more currencies in its reserve. So you can see here, this currency over here has a reserve of actually a currency called Bancor, the first currency that's going to be created on the Bancor Protocol. This explains what happens, right? So if you're a mathematician, this makes complete sense to you. If you're not, like the rest of us, then in a nutshell, what these formulas say is that the way you can sell your currency is you simply send it to the smart contract. It destroys your currency and pulls money out of the reserve for you. When you want to buy your currency, you simply send the reserve currency to the smart contract. It issues you your currency. And what it essentially does, I'll just take a moment to explain this, is it solves what is known as the double coincidence of wants in asset exchange. Right? So this fancy term, all it means is that, if you think about barter is very inefficient, right? Because I got to come with my tomatoes and you're going to come with your carrots, and we need to meet in real time. We need to have exact opposite needs. It's very, very low chance, right? So how do we solve this with technology? We invented money, and money separates the buying from the selling, right? I can buy now, I can sell later, and we have this intermediary. But if you think of the world of currencies, it still works like barter, right? There's no money for money, right? You need to have two people with opposite wants that meet on an exchange, and in real time, bids and asks, and then we have a deal, and that's how we set prices between currencies, and that's how we provide liquidity with market makers and speculators. But this entire paradigm of hundreds of years of currency theory can now change because we have smart contracts. So we actually can have one person buy the currency now, one person sell the currency later. These two people do not need to be matched in real time. They just need to work vis-a-vis the smart contract. And so we see Bancor as the world's first solution to the double coincidence of wants in currency exchange. But it's funny because we started this protocol off to really solve this problem, and very quickly we realized that something that is very simple, this concept of a currency that can hold more currencies in reserve, it's actually very profound, because you can build many different kinds of things with it. So imagine that you are holding multiple currencies in reserve. In this case, what you've essentially created is you've created a decentralized ETF. An ETF is basically a basket of currencies, right? Like an index fund. Except today, if you want an ETF, you need a bank or financial intermediary to hold this ETF for you. But you don't need this anymore. Now, with smart contracts and with the help of the Bancor Protocol, we can create the world's first decentralized ETFs. We just came back from a hackathon in Tel Aviv a couple weeks ago, where we were fortunate enough to win. And I think one of the reasons was that most of the judges were major global banks, right? So from HSBC to Deutsche Bank and Intesa Sanpaolo, and banks from Taiwan. And I think this concept was very, very compelling to them, because these ETFs don't only need to be ETFs of different altcoins, right? Let's do an ETF with Golem and Augur and Melonport and have it be like an altcoin ETF focused on data, or a consumer ETF, or a sharing economy ETF with Airbnb and Uber and Lyft inside. But now the real role of banks and large trusted institutions is to start asset tokenization, where we take the real world and we bring it online, right? So we not only bring the fiat world into blockchain, but we start bringing gold and oil and all kinds of real assets. And you can now create decentralized ETFs that represent these assets, and you hold them directly. Nobody holds this for you. All right, so it brings up the bot. You can use Telegram, you can use Facebook. We're integrating now with WeChat. We also have some other integrations that are unannounced, but we will talk about them more shortly. Eyal here is really quickly just going through the questions, answering them. What's the name of your currency? What's the name, and the plural name of it? What's your location? All right, so it knows we're in Amsterdam. What do you want your symbol to be? This is testnet, right? So we can just play around with it and do whatever we want. All right, now he goes to sign his transaction. Takes about, right, 13 seconds or so to process a block, so it's going to take a few seconds till it's done. But here's our currency already for Bitcoin Wednesdays. If somebody wants to go on to Parity or check it out, you can find it already on the testnet. We'll just maybe add a nice little photo for Bitcoin Wednesdays. Okay, we can't find it right now, but you can see how easy it is. Anybody can then now kind of set their group. You can have discussions in this group. Oh, there it is. That's the ping we just got back from testnet. That just tells us that the token was successfully created. And that's it. Thank you.